Happy New Year, everybody. For our first Poll Hub of 2020, we're sitting down with the man, the legend, Charlie Cook of the Cook Political Report. We're going to look ahead at this historic election year that is in front of us. We're going to talk about Democratic candidates, the president's Teflon bodysuit, and the lay of the land at the state level. Because let's not forget, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in 2016, but we don't elect presidents by the popular vote, do we? States, or rather some states, matter a lot, and we're going to talk about it. So grab one more glass of bubbly, grab your headphones, and let's get to it. And hi, everybody. Welcome to Poll Hub. I'm Jay DeDapper, Director of Innovation here at the Marist Poll.
And I'm Barbara Carvalho, Director of the Marist Poll.
And I'm Lee Miringoff, Director of the Marist College Institute for Public Opinion.
And happy 2020. We have arrived. Not just a new year, it's a new decade. Does it feel different?
Not so far.
Not so
well,
far.
and the new decade thing, that can always be a question, whether the 0 or
Right,
the 1
yeah.
starts the decade. So as numbers people, I don't think we want to go there.
Shouldn't have raised that issue. Hey, can I just change gears here? Charlie
Sure.
Cook
Please.
is with us from the Cook Political Report. Please save us, Charlie. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Anything I could do for Marist. You guys do a great poll. You're just great folks to work with.
Boy, I tell you, all right, we're done. Thank you very much, Charlie, for joining us. Okay, Charlie, we've you and I have seen countless elections come and go. This one in 2019 for the Democrats was all about electability. We need to find somebody who's going to beat Donald Trump. Is that where we're heading for the next month as we approach the caucuses and the primaries? And is that a good strategy for the Democrats generally?
Well, I've Lee, you and Barbara and I and Jay have all watched this for a really long time. I've never seen electability a major factor in a party's nomination process. I mean, in primary voters. And it really is kind of interesting because normally pundits try to look at things through the eyes of voters and pretend like they're voters. Well, now we have voters trying to be pundits. And, they're all handicapping. Well, I like so-and-so, but I'm not sure they have a great chance. So, but I think it's that while there are divisions in the Democratic Party, they are unified in the importance of winning. And, Democrats tend to view President Trump as an existential threat. So electability is everything, but electability is kind of in the eye of the beholder. It means different things to different people, and some people it's ideological, and some it goes into other things. But clearly it is a dominant factor this time, even though we've never seen that before.
Following up on that, Charlie, Joe Biden has sort of been the guy who is trying to do electability, but if the last few months is any indication, he hasn't been able in the top tier to close it out, and yet no one behind him has been able to overtake him generally. I know Iowa and New Hampshire individual polls are showing something different. So, is this I don't even want to ask this question, but is this a strong field for the Democrats, or do you think there's a lot of vulnerability, or is it just the time of year it is and no one looks electable at this point?
No, I think it's a good field. It's certainly a huge field. I think part of what's happening though is there's so many people in it that it's what Albert Toffler called overchoice in Future Shop, where there's so many choices that people are almost paralyzed into inaction. But the thing is, as long as electability was defined as ideology, that was great for Joe Biden, because he is a great candidate for going after centrist voters. But to the extent that electability starts encompassing, are you, or do you come across as too old? Are you nimble enough? Are you, is your fastball as fast as it used to be? When these other factors and a little bit of Hunter Biden coming in, when electability is broadened out beyond ideology, that's what's sort of weighing Biden down. And I would still put him at a higher percentage chance of winning the Democratic nomination than any of the others, but it would only be at like 30%. With like three people at 20% each. This is as wide open as fields get, and I think part of it is there are just so many candidates running. It's just split so many different ways, and people hesitant to. They don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to nominate the wrong person and lose this general election.
So much at stake.
So it's fascinating.
So how big a deal is Iowa this year? Some years it's a bigger deal than others. When Tom Harkin was on the ballot, it wasn't a big deal for obvious reasons. In other years, it has been the kingmaker. This is how Obama, in 2008, rose to the top of the charts very quickly. Is Iowa, because of the size of the field this year, maybe even more important than even in 2008 than it was to Obama?
Well, 6-8 weeks ago, my thought was that Iowa, New Hampshire were both just as important, if not more so, than ever before. That catapulting effect that we normally have, but also the fact that California early voting starts the day of the Iowa caucus, and a lot of these other Super Tuesday states start voting immediately after Iowa. And New Hampshire, that it would magnify the import, and I still think that's true to a certain extent. But then we see the Michael Bloomberg strategy, and I'm somewhat skeptical about whether Bloomberg can win the Democratic nomination. But the thing is, when you've got the entire field focused on 4 states that have 4% of the delegates, and someone spending, say, $1 billion going after the other 46 states and doing saturation television advertising across all of the super states, all 14 of them, from California to North Carolina, and with Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, quite possibly having 3 different winners in 4 states, with nobody having a whole lot of delegates coming out of the front 4, I'm not prepared to say he's got no chance at all. I mean, I wouldn't put Bloomberg's chances any worse than Buttigieg or Warren.
Yeah,
maybe 20% each, and Biden 30%.
Yeah, one of the things, Charlie, which I find interesting is, of course, from New York, we have a somewhat jaundiced view of, we know him. We know, the good things, the bad things. Yeah, Bloomberg, warts and all, and we know, what he's, been able to accomplish in certain areas, especially in the gun legislation area, gun control. From the D.C. crowd, you're maybe one of the few exceptions, from people we've talked to who very often, can nail these things early. Most sort of think Bloomberg's going to stumble because of the Iowa and the New Hampshire, catapult effect, as you called it. But you're sort of saying, well, this is maybe a different time because he's, I guess, the anti-Trump. I mean, he's everything Trump says he is, but isn't.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, I mean, when I look at people that do pretty much what I do for a living around Washington, I don't know anyone else that thinks that Bloomberg still has much of a chance. But the thing is, I've to the extent I could tell, there's nothing in the Old Testament or the New Testament or the Constitution or the U.S. Code, or the Torah. I mean, I don't know of anything that says you have to spend all of the pre-campaign and the early stage of the campaign in states with 4% of the delegates, and the other 96% of the delegates don't matter so much. I mean, I just think that's kind of short-sighted. I mean, as I travel around the country, I see Bloomberg ads everywhere. Yeah. And you're talking about, last time I checked, he was advertising in markets with 74% of the U.S. population. And they're good ads, and nobody else is up in almost all of these places.
Yeah. And they may not have a lot of money when that comes around.
And you can always, you got to watch these New Yorkers, because sometimes these New Yorkers really surprise when you least expect it. We have seen, a number of, ads that Bloomberg has, certainly put up in all of these markets. But there's, another also, kind of figure that has been, looking over the Democratic field. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts are about President Obama and also his role and his legacy of what, how that's going to impact how Democrats move forward. Because we've seen a lot of, concerns among Democrats on a variety of different issues, but not necessarily an interest in wanting to go back to the Obama years, particularly among younger Democrats.
Well, Barbara, that's a great point. And my colleague, Amy Walter, the way she puts it is you've got two camps in the Democratic Party, and one wants to hit the reset button. They just want to restore things to where they were before Donald Trump was elected president. And then you've got this other group that they want fundamental systemic change. And they see our political process and our economic system as fundamentally corrupt. And that's what Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are tapping into, these people that just getting rid of Donald Trump is not nearly enough. I think effectively that constituency is roughly 40% of the electorate, which means 60% is somewhat more pragmatic, and they just want to win. But there are a lot of Democrats that, when you go to a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren event in Iowa or New Hampshire or any place else, when they're talking, you see a lot of heads nodding, and where they are tapping into the fundamental values of the party. But the question is, can either one of them win, and is that a major strike against them? But it is interesting that President Obama is highly regarded in the party, but there doesn't seem to be a rush to go back exactly to where things were.
Yeah.
And where I think Biden benefits enormously from the high regard that President Obama had in Biden in picking him as his running mate and being Obama's wingman, and that's helping him enormously with the African American community. But there's somewhat less deference. I mean, I don't understand why Biden is saying, I don't understand why some of these other Democrats want to repeal and replace Obamacare, which is in effect what, all the Medicare for all folks are saying.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised he doesn't do that, to be honest.
Yeah. No, to your point on this, Susan Page of USA Today, who we all know well, she makes, I believe it was her, made the point that Republicans fall in line and Democrats fall in love. And certainly the Republicans have fallen in line over Donald Trump to the point that there's barely a naysayer in the party at this point. Can the Democrats kind of, right now they can be in love with their own person, like you said, but can they come together, or is that electability in the end, the unity going to drive it, or are there going to be a lot of disgruntled folks, at some point because their guy or gal didn't win it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't know. Love is normally the emotion that drives Democratic voters, but I don't sense that quite so much this year. I mean, I think that they are. I mean, they want to beat Donald Trump, and they keep sort of. They systematically exclude almost every candidate. I mean, if you're a Democrat, you're saying, well, let's see, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are too liberal, and Joe Biden is too old and makes too many mistakes. And Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, well, they were they were African Americans. Well, they can't win, forgetting, of course, that Barack Obama did. And well, I don't know a woman can win. Well, that's a strike against Klobuchar and Warren. But they kind of go through the whole field, excluding people. And the thing is, Lee, you and I are old enough, and I'm not going to say anything about Barbara.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You remember people saying that Peanut Farmer from Georgia can never win a Democratic nomination, or a Arkansas governor with a zipper problem can't win a nomination. We can, I mean, a B actor can't win the presidency. Donald Trump, a reality TV star can't. I mean, all these cases, they make a lot of sense until they're wrong.
So we start the negative advertising really, really early. Charlie, you and along with the Cook Political Report is certainly well known for your electoral college ratings, and we know this is going to come down to not a national election, but a state by state contest. So, folks really want to get a sense of, what are the states that you foresee are going to be the ones that are going to win and lose the presidential contest this time?
Well, Barbara, I think the footprint is going to look a whole lot like it did in 2016, but while Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina were sort of on the fringe where they weren't quite in the battleground, I think those three will. And Ohio, that historically has been but wasn't in 2016, I think it's actually going to be on, within the borders of the battleground. So I think it is going to be it's going to be a very big battleground, I think. And to the extent that Democrats need to win, just winning one out of Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania isn't enough. They've got to win all three. But to the extent that they lose, all other things being equal, but to the extent that they lose, let's say one or two of them, they've got to make up for that in Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. I think we're all going to be looking at a lot of Marist polls next year because there's going to be a heck of a lot of state polling. Because there was so little state polling in some of these places like Michigan and Wisconsin, that I think news organizations like NBC, like CNN, like Fox, they're going to be having to poll in a lot more states than they did in 2016, so we don't get bit in the rear end like we did in 2016, where we were focused more on states that didn't end up mattering and not so much on Michigan and Wisconsin, and we kind of missed on the middle of Pennsylvania, the part between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Right. We, along with NBC, were in Arizona, Texas, and Georgia, as opposed to Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Could we? And of course,
and the thing is, of course, you kind of wonder. I always wonder, well, what would have happened if the Clinton campaign had contested Michigan and Wisconsin? Maybe would that have made 0.2 of a point difference in Michigan? Would it have made 0.7 of a point difference in Wisconsin, or the middle of Pennsylvania, 0.7 of a point? That's just the amazing thing, is to have 137 million people vote, and it comes down to fewer than 78,000. Which you guys are the math whizzes, but I think that 0.06% effectively decided the election. And it's like, holy mackerel. So it's not just how many votes you get, but where do you get them?
Before we go, how predictive is what's happened in 2018? What does that tell you about what will happen in 2020 in terms of voter enthusiasm, who's turning out, especially in these battleground states? Is there any lesson to be learned, anything you're looking at from 2018 that helps inform what you expect in 2020?
Well, I think if we don't have the highest turnout in American history next year, we will come very, very close. And that would be 65% of the eligible voters. It would have to beat the 65% from 1940 and 1960. And to me, what was so interesting was 2014, the previous midterm election. That was the lowest midterm election turnout since 1942. Then we had, 2016 was sort of a normal turnout, 60%, in line with the three previous ones. And then 2018, we had the highest midterm election turnout since 1914. Now, you don't go from the lowest in 72 years to the highest in 104 years without something going on.
Yeah.
And most of the numbers I'm seeing show level of interest in 2020 is higher than it was at any point up until the last couple of weeks. In previous presidentials and in the Fox News poll, it's actually higher than it was going into Election Day, the last couple.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have an enormous turnout just nationwide, and obviously in the battleground states where there are going to be big campaign efforts. that will absolutely be the case. But, the good news is it makes polling a little easier because likely voters looks pretty much like registered voters.
Yeah.
Everybody's voting.
Yeah, look forward to that one. Okay, so many years ago, Charlie, you came to Marist, okay, and you met with a group of students, and I want to just end with this anecdote. So I invited you to come up here, and you said, I'd be happy to come up to Marist. I'm on my way to New Hampshire anyway. Charlie, last time I checked the map, Poughkeepsie wasn't on the way to New Hampshire if you're leaving in Washington. So I remember that from many years ago that you were a trooper then. You've been a trooper ever since. So, the pundit world is a better place because of you and the folks that you have working with you who are all just superlative.
Well, it's always an honor to visit campus and meet with the students, and to be one of the most devout users of the Marist Poll. And but you guys do an amazing job, and we all rely upon you. And with the extent that we're going to be looking at 14, 15 states next year. We're going to be more reliant on you than ever before.
Yeah. We're going to be a little busy.
Well, I look forward to next time our paths cross. Thanks a lot, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Take care. Listen, I promise I will be there between now and the November election.
Cool.
But I will be there. I will be there if you ask me.
Oh,
so there you go.
Not a choice. We're good, definitely on our list. Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Charlie.
Take care, guys.
Well, that will do it for this edition of Poll Hub. Poll Hub is a production of the Marist Poll at Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York. Thank you, Mary Griffith, our executive producer, and Casey Schaff, our editor.
And thanks to the Roper Center Archives at Cornell University, who provide us lots of data, and they can provide you that too if you want to go subscribe to them. But you don't have to subscribe to us because we're free. Right, Jay?
Well, actually, you do want to subscribe, but I'll get to that.
But yeah, you can subscribe, but we're free.
That's right. If you've got questions or comments, reach out to us on social media. We're at Marist Poll on Twitter, Marist Poll on Facebook and Instagram. And do subscribe if you would like to. A new thing to do for 2020 for yourself if you haven't. And just one mention. We've done it in the past, and just want to remind you that we've got this thing called the Marist Poll Academy. It's an online learning platform. It is free. It's visual. It's fun. We talk a lot about polls, a lot about the issues around polling on this podcast, and this is a place that you can go and you can find out more. So especially going into 2020, and now that we're here and we've got all these campaign polls ahead of us and all this election coverage, it's a great time to check out the Marist Poll Academy so that you are poll literate. That's my favorite word for 2020.